And finally, we'll get to the point of this talk session, which is redefining the narrative, non-traditional science communication. We'll have a series of 4 10-minute talks from all these lovely people here. And without further ado, I'll pass this off to our first speaker, Justin Atkins of the popular YouTube channel, Thought Emporium. Take it away, Justin.
Hey everybody, just give me 2 seconds to share my screen. Can everybody see that? Okay, so my name is Justin Atkin, no S, and I I run the YouTube channel, the Thought Emporium, and so like Mackenzie said, I'm going to be talking about doing science on YouTube and specifically why I think that science should include more video. Humans are inherently visual creatures, but so is science. There's very few things that we do in science that isn't inherently visual. So I've got a couple of quick examples here. So in the top left, we've got Brainbow, where individual neurons have all been labeled different colors because when you do this, it is much easier to see what they're doing, how they wire, that sort of thing. We've also got nanoparticles, which change color based on their size, or even just something that maybe more of you are familiar with, which is gel electrophoresis, where, you know, just looking at a hunk of gel can give you tons of information about the DNA that you loaded onto it. But when it comes time to actually present scientific information, this is kind of what we end up defaulting to, where it's just large walls of text, where everything is a little bit obtuse, and you also end up losing a ton of detail because you kind of have to keep papers short and, you know, maintain brevity. But also, you know, there's like a size limit, and there's only language is finite. There's only so many things that you can actually describe with words. So I think that the best word for this is exformation, information explicitly discarded. Basically, it's all the stuff that you have had to discard when you're writing the paper for one reason or another, just because you have to. It's the only way that it works. And, you know, this becomes even more of a problem when you get papers where information has been left out, not just to keep the paper short, but because they're trying to hide information, like they're trying to patent something, and so they're like, we're going to leave out all the important stuff. But, you know, that's kind of a separate problem. This is, I think, a perfect example of this. These are gold nanoparticles, and chemically they are all identical. Every vial is identical, with the only difference being the size of the particle. The thing is, when you read nanopapers, you will almost never see an image like this. You might get a scanning electron microscope image or maybe some X-ray diffraction data, but you'll never just get a picture, which is very odd considering that, you know, we all carry high definition cameras in our pockets at all times. And so it literally makes no sense to not just whip your phone out, take a picture of the thing and include it in the paper, especially when most nanomaterials have this property where, you know, there's a distinct color change when you've done it right. So when you go to actually try and replicate their protocol, it becomes functionally impossible because you don't know what it's supposed to look like until after you've sent the sample off to the electron microscope lab, which is slow and tedious. But if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000,000. So the thumbnail that I've included in this slide here is about a video that I made about cold fire, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's fire, but it's room temperature or colder. You can see it as that little blue flame there. And you can see that it's not very flammable because it's aimed at a piece of paper and it's not igniting. What was really great about this video is this was actually a really difficult project. The torch that you see in that photo was version 18. So it took a lot of work to actually get it to that point. But in the video, I was able to include not only how to actually build the thing, how the pieces fit together, but also talk about the failings, the sticking points, the little fine details that would otherwise be lost in a traditional paper. And we were working off of academic literature, but it was very difficult to actually make this work because a lot of the materials were rather obtuse, or they were using obscure materials to build the thing, and so it was kind of interesting. But, you know, as I said at the beginning, I run the channel, the Thought Emporium, and there's one other really big reason to do science on YouTube, which is the view count. As you can see here, the videos are ranging from 600,000 to 2 million views. And I think it kind of goes without saying that there's essentially no paper you could ever write that would ever get that kind of viewage. I don't even think the Einstein papers got that kind of viewage. But, you know, admittedly, most of the people watching aren't scientists. Like, that's a given. But that's not to say that a lot of them aren't. Like you would actually be very surprised at the sheer number of scientists, academics, and people at the top of their fields who end up watching my videos, commenting. There have been multiple videos where I'm covering, like I'm recreating something from a paper, and the actual, like the author of that paper writes in is like, oh my God, I never thought I'd actually see this in a video. So even though it's a non-traditional format, the impact can still be quite large. And I think probably the best example I have of this was this project. The products you see here are what are called negative ion products. It's like a quack medicine nonsense thing. And the idea is they put out negative ions, which are a real thing. It's a type of particle. It requires energy to make them. But the riddle was, how do you have a piece of plastic make something consistently forever that takes energy to make? And the answer was they fill it full of radioactive material, in this case, thorium dioxide. When that video went out, dozens of people contacted the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, who then contacted me, and I was able to file a formal complaint, which led to various companies that make these things being permanently shut down and Amazon having to pull dozens of products from their store. So I think that just kind of goes to show the impact that just a silly YouTube video can actually have. But when it comes to doing science on YouTube, I think this is probably the best example I have. This is a project I've been working on for a very long time. It's making spider silk be produced by yeast. But I don't actually think that I would have ever finished this project if I wasn't doing it on YouTube. And the reason being is this. As I was working on the project, I could share videos of each individual step, the overview and the progress, and get instant real-time feedback from the viewers, which is something that you don't get in a paper. Like with a paper, you fundamentally you only publish once it's done. Whereas with this, because I'm able to publish at every step, you get instant feedback. And there's kind of a running joke that the fastest way to find the correct answer to something is to post the wrong answer on the internet. Oh yeah, it's true. It's very true. One of the, then the other benefit is, of course, because doing YouTube is my job, there's also the funding opportunities. So I get a constant like drip feed of funding to allow me to keep buying more materials and more stuff. But in terms of demonstrating that, I skipped a thing. This feedback mechanism, I think this one was probably my favorite example. In the video that you see highlighted in the top right, I genetically modified some baker's yeast to produce beta-carotene using a plasmid I got on Atkin. But in that video, my transformation efficiency was garbage. I only got one transformed colony. So in the video, I included a request that if anybody's a yeast researcher to write in and send me their protocols. And I got more than a dozen very long responses like this one, super detailed, all kinds of little changes that I should make. And I ended up following this protocol, and it radically changed my transformation efficiency. But all the stuff that was in here was not things that were in the protocols when you're like looking them up online or in literature. It's all that kind of like insider knowledge from people who've done this a bajillion times that you just otherwise wouldn't get. So, getting that personal feedback was fantastic. But, it's not to say that video is perfect. It obviously isn't. And there's a bunch of pitfalls potentially. First of all, there's no DOI number or traditional peer review, even though, in my opinion, you probably get more review when you've got, 10,000 people on the internet being like, you're doing this wrong, compared to, 3 anonymous reviewers. But that's neither here nor there. But also because it's on YouTube, it is looked down on by some academics, which has been uncomfortable at times. But it's actually fairly well respected these days. Like there's kind of growing respect for it. At least on YouTube, though, it does need to be entertaining. That's kind of the catch-22. If it's not entertaining and it's not well produced, then it's not going to get lots of viewage. And that kind of also wraps into production quality. Production quality has a huge effect on the like how much information you actually get out of the video. And this is a problem with things like Jove, which is the only video paper thing that actually gives you a DOI. The production quality on a lot of those videos is awful. And so if anything, you lose more information, which, is kind of hard. Also, it's hard to parse a video quickly. So like a method section is useful because it's basically a baking recipe. You can just burn through it really quick, pull out the information you need, and then do the thing. Whereas a video, not so much. So I think the ideal format is somewhere in between. You've got a video, show the whole protocol, show the stuff, but also have a write-up separately where people can like get the Spark notes and the thing. But the one last example I want to finish on really quickly is the from the thumbnail in the bottom right there. It was from a video I did about growing human neurons on a homemade multi-electrode array, which I made myself, and I made the machine that made that. And when that video went out, I was contacted by the guy who started the field of multi-electrode array recordings, which is Professor Steve Potter. And since then, we've actually maintained some correspondence. And now every time I post about the neuron thing, like he comments on the videos and he's like sending me tips and tricks and this kind of thing. So it's definitely like video, especially on YouTube, is a way to connect with a much wider audience, get instant feedback, potentially a new revenue stream, and also just convey so much more information than you could in a more traditional format.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. That was a great talk. The chat is going off, so while you stick around for the Q&A session at the end, feel free to interact with that. That would be really excellent. Our next speaker, we're going to move right along, is Carla Molins Pitarch, and she's going to be speaking to us about gorilla science. So Carla, if you want to take it away. We can't hear you. You're muted, Carla. There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the button. I don't know where it goes. Can you see my screen? Yes? Perfect. So welcome to Science Guerrilla. And this talk is about bringing cell and molecular biology from the lab to the street. And first of all, I want to say a little bit about myself. So I create experiences to bring different complex topics to broader audiences. And I've been working with varied disciplines such as physics, cosmology, and lately I've been digging myself into biology. If you're interested in the project Blibs and Blobs, you can find it in the BioArt gallery. So as you can see, I'm not a scientist and I don't consider myself a traditional science communicator, and I'm a creative technologist who's crafting experiences. So I'm very interested to know your background. So please, if you can, type it on the chat and I will take a look later. So it's a poll. So where does the science guerrilla come from? So basically right now, I'm part of a European research project that's called Chrome Design. And as you can see, there's the picture of 13 people. And there are 12 scientists and 1 non-scientist, that's myself. And the main domain is chromatin. And my role is to be able to help them bring that complexity to a broader audience. So the main question, and I think that's what you might be interested in, is why do we need a non-traditional SciComm narrative? So first of all, it's because it's very difficult to convey science to people that don't know what you are talking about. And later on, it's very difficult to catch people on the go to explain something that is specific, such as cell and molecular biology. So here's the scenario that I'm bringing you. So we have 12 scientists who are going to be the communicators. We have participants, a totally random audience. We have a location, Las Ramblas in Barcelona, one of the most touristy avenues in the city. And then the actions, what I call the science guerrilla. So up to this point, do you have any idea of what a science guerrilla might be? So please type in the chat, yes, no, maybe, or whatever feeling you have towards this concept. Okay, so guerrilla marketing, it's a tool that's usually used when there are some financial restrictions and you don't have a lot of resources to make some advertising about something. Usually it's done in public spaces, so you don't need a lot more of that to find people. And it's very easy to attract a broader audience. And here is where Science Guerrilla comes from. It's to bring science to the street. So the main goal of this session was to use gamification and communication techniques to bring scientific research to the street. But of course, we had additional goals to make sure that participants could take the most of the session. So we wanted to talk about how we communicate today. We need to always provide a context to the audience. You need to adapt the language to make it understandable. Of course, surprise, and you need to attract people. Otherwise, you won't be successful with your SciComm strategies. So you can generate some interest and debate. And at the very end, you want to show the value of your research. Why do they need to think about it? So how we did it in less than 3 hours. We had a plan. So it was a very organized session. There was a workshop in class, and then there were different phases that were going to happen in the street. And afterwards, we wanted to chat a little bit about it. But what did really happen, it was that we needed to change the plan on the go, because for the sake of time, we had to shorten a little bit the in-class activities. And at the very end, in the street, we kind of like shifted to what was working better for people. And it worked like a charm. So when I'm talking about phases, what I'm referring to, so the first phase for us, it was about creating engagement using catchy questions. So if we were to find someone in the street with a poster, there was a very a binary question, and people had to choose one answer or the other. And for participants, we gave some very, very dumb examples, such as gen editing, yes or no. But at the very end, researchers chose a question that worked for themselves. And then that's why they're working with in the session. And in here, you can see a picture of the session that took place this past February. And they were creating these different kind of like question artworks. And I think that this example is hilarious. So there's an Italian researcher who, of course, thought that DNA had to be pasta. And then these are pictures of the action taking place. We were using different configurations, so people could kind of like walk around the different questions, and at the very end, some questions would kind of like spark some attention. After a while, I would say after half an hour, we ended up having a huge crowd and people taking pictures and people cheering up to see all the other questions. So I think for us was kind of like a blast to see that happening. And of course, when you got someone's attention, you need to get to the point to explain your research. So what we told the participants, it was like, you need to find a way to explain your research that's short. So we are going to give you some constraints. It needs to be a quick format, 140 characters, and jargon is forbidden. And they were working in pairs to make sure that all of them are applying these criteria. Sorry. And how are we going to know if this works or not? So we are going to get an audience evaluation. So every communicator had a very simple paper chart, and then they would ask at the end of the conversation if they did understand or not. So with the sticker, the person would kind of like position themselves on one side or the other. And here again, some pictures of the real thing. There were multiple meaningful and very long conversations, and everyone got the chance to explain the research in multiple and varied ways. Something that's very important if you organize one event of this kind is that you need to provide context. So we created a very cheap cardboard with kind of like a cardboard base, and we printed it in a plotter, so people got some more details about it. And I want to summarize this with some takeaways of the participants of myself. So everyone found that it was very helpful to explain their project differently. It was a lot of thinking because it's very difficult to engage people. And the real challenge was to talk to strangers because you don't know who those people are and what they do. And some of them find interesting that we didn't tell them exactly what to do when they interacted with people. It was on them, so kind of like throwing them into the issue. And my summary is, to me, you need to kind of like make scientists think out of the box. You get better results. You need to give them room from creativity. So if you have a very basic set of rules, work with those rules and with them to make sure that you have something that works both for them and for you. Don't forget that visual language can be very helpful. And the real challenge, again, strangers with unknown background. But for me, the most important thing is that you can create a small impact, even if it's a small, with a very, very low budget as we had. And last tips, be flexible, adapt to the situation, prepare more things than the ones that you can actually do. You never know what would happen when you are on the spot, and always get your permit. Luckily, we had one because the police came when we were halfway done, but we didn't get caught. Just to finish, this is one of the participants' feedback, and I think that the last sentence kind of like really, really focuses on what I wanted to say. It's like, if you make it a game and you make it fun, you can make it, you can make everything happen. And this is all the people that participated. We had amazing helpers. People from Elisava also help us on like printing everything. And I think that's like working together and collaborating was what really make it a success. And thank you for your attention. If you want to see more of my work, you can find it here. And this research and this project is funded by Horizon 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carla. Let's get some snaps. Let's get some emotes in here. That was awesome. Can't wait to hear more from you at the Q&A session. But let's just keep moving on. Let's hear from Darrion Nguyen of the very popular TikTok account, LabShenanigans. It's all you, Darrion.
Hey guys, you guys can see my screen, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so my name is Darrion Nguyen, or also known as LabShenanigans Online, and the title of my talk is Using TikTok to Visualize Science Concepts. Just a brief background about myself. I graduated from the University of Texas at Austin. I studied biochemistry and theater, and I graduated in 2017. After that, I've been working as a research technician at Texas Children's Hospital, working in conjunction with Baylor College of Medicine. So just a background about TikTok. So for those that aren't familiar with it, it's a social media platform where we make videos that are about 30 seconds long. And there are like a lot of ongoing trends. More of the popular ones are like dance trends and applying pop culture audios to relatable scenarios or situations. And so what I like to do with my platform, I got on TikTok about a year ago, and within the last year, I was able to like rack up about 520K followers in such a short amount of time. So it's been an insane journey. But what I like to do is use these pop culture audios to and apply them to biology or biochemistry science concepts. So here's an example of one of my videos. In this video, I'm using an audio clip from Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And in this video, a cytoplasm is arguing with the ribosome. And the ribosome is explaining to cytoplasm that they have a business that they put together like amino acids to form proteins. So this video is a little bit laggy, but you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about.
But you don't. So don't even act like you know what I'm talking about.
So I love everything about this audio because it's messy, it's chaotic, it's me. And the next audio clip that I want to kind of, I guess I want to show you guys like the thought process on how I put together these videos. And I generally like to lean towards the audios that, like I said, are messy and chaotic. I'm kind of like, I do follow the stereotype of a gay person where I love drama. I like to say that I'm gay first, scientist second. So when I hear something that is very dramatic, I lean towards it and I'm like, all right, how do I apply this to a science concept? So here's a quote from, or here's an audio clip from the show Dance Moms. And here's a transcript for this audio clip.
I didn't push you. I moved you out of the way because you wouldn't move when I asked you to move 3 times. So I walked through you.
So you're saying you could not have walked around this?
You were all in a line in front of the door.
So there's so much information packed in this clip, and I try to listen to this clip several times and find the certain points where I'm like, okay, I think I can apply this to a biological process. So there are 2 areas that really stick out to me. I moved you out of the way, and you were all in a line in front of the door. So, all right, thinking back to biology, biochemistry, what are some processes that involve something moving? And like literally everything, but the things that come to my mind immediately are like mRNA exiting the nucleus, transcribing mRNA, enzymes breaking down a molecule, transporting proteins through a membrane, and chromosomes moving during mitosis, meiosis, and so on. So definitely like there's a long list, but these are the first ones that come to mind. And then the second part, the other highlight portion is you were all in a line in front of the door. All right, so what are some processes that involve something lining up? Bringing back up this list, how do I filter out some of these processes? All right, well, almost all of them. Well, I'm sure like all of these processes have something that involves something lining up. But for me, the low-hanging fruit is chromosomes moving during mitosis. And just kind of backtracking and kind of refreshing our memories. What is mitosis? Well, our cells spend a lot of time during interphase, and mitosis consists of these different phases of prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis. Where prophase, the chromosomes pair up. During metaphase, the chromosomes line up at the center, and then the mitotic spindle fibers form. And then during anaphase, that's when the spindle fibers pull apart the sister chromatids. And during telophase and cytokinesis, the 2 cells pinch apart, forming the daughter cells. And so when I go through these each step of mitosis, I have to try to think back to the audio clip. And I'm like, okay, metaphase, I believe fits perfectly with this clip. So going back to this, how do I break this down and try to apply this to metaphase of mitosis? And it's the theater in me that I want to like create a script where I personify the mitotic spindle fibers and personify the chromosomes. So the mitotic spindle fibers are like, I didn't push you, I moved you out of the way because you wouldn't move when I asked you to move 3 times, so I walked through you. And then the chromosomes are arguing back, so you're saying you could not have walked around me. Well, you were all in a line in front of the door. And TikTok is very user-friendly where there are a lot of effects and transitions, and after filming both characters, I will add like a different transition or a different effect just to create like another layer of humor. And so here is the final product.
I didn't push you. I moved you out of the way because you wouldn't move when I asked you to move 3 times. So I walked through you.
So you're saying you could not have walked around this?
You were all in a line in front of the door.
And so this is just, like I said, another example of one of my videos. But if you guys visit my TikTok page, most of my videos are just like this. And it's very fun to do. And I think this is definitely an effective way to communicate and educate, educate my followers. And for most of my videos, I like to have them very entertaining. Like, I guess my main focus is to make my videos more entertaining and then have like the educational portion like a byproduct. At the end of the day, I want my viewers to see these type of videos and say like, oh wow, this is so funny. But oh wait, I think I just learned something. Or, okay, I don't think I will ever forget this process ever again. Or I'll remember this for my next test. And this is definitely an avenue that I'm further like wanting to explore. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for thank you so much for listening to my talk. And if you guys want to watch my videos or follow me on my social media accounts, it is lab_shenanigans on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And on Facebook, I wasn't allowed to put the underscore, so it is lab_shenanigans. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. And if you guys have any questions, it'll be at the very end of this session.
Awesome, thanks so much. Let's get some snaps, some emotes for Darrion. The chat is also going off, so you can stick around there and maybe answer some questions if people have any. And if not, we will do them at the end. Our final speaker in this talk series is Fernando Rivera, and he's going to be talking to us about JourBiotech. Fernando, are you able to share your screen? We can't hear you. Are you speaking?
Okay.
Perfect.
Can you see my presentation?
Yep, looks great.
Okay. Good afternoon with everyone from Ecuador. My name is Fernando Valdivieso. I am going to talk about a project to disseminate science related to biotechnology called Journal Club Biotechnology. To start, about us. We are a group of students from the Iktian Amazon Regional University and other volunteers from educational institutions of Ecuador, like IHTech and SPOCH. As we can see, we try to make a group balanced by men and women to have a better vision about the perspective of women and men to biotechnology and science related. The Journal Club Biotechnology seeks a space for dialogue between academia and society, promoting the scientific dissemination of science related to biotechnology through conference, infographics, and the discussion of articles. What we do? First, we hold a weekly talk on topics related to biotechnology using a platform like using a Zoom. How it works? First, we try to connect to other scientists, and they accept to do a conference via Zoom. After the people filed about this, and we have almost 300 of participants, and they can do your questions in the chat. One another thing is the infographics. About the infographics, this is like a phone to connect to another people that have the same passion for a science. For example, in this, we can see that Soria Merchant do these infographics about golden rice. In this concept, people can connect with them and talk about more profoundly about this thing. The second one is this information. We make information about topic of interest in different colors of biotechnology. Some examples can be seen in the image below. Some can be part of the content and rewards. We have free course paid for by our collaborations such as Sebio. We do with the support. Okay. How have we achieved it? With the support of the different groups and organizations from different parts of the world. The connection with other countries like Brazil, Argentina. As a result, we have held events in Portuguese and Spanish, something that we define as Portuñol. Due to the similarity of the two languages, it was easy even to understand, and that was the purpose. Break down a language barrier. Our vision is continue to expand in the scientific knowledge in America Latin. And the word for this, we need more allies. If you are interested, you can write to us. This is about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or maybe WhatsApp. And thanks to everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much, Fernando. That was a very interesting talk. I can't believe you have 300 participants. That's like huge, huge, huge for a Zoom call. Wow. Yeah, so with that, we'll open it right up to questions. I think Amanda Strawhacker was maybe keeping some questions from the chat, although it's been kind of fast moving, so no problems. If anyone has a question, you can raise a tiny blue hand and I'll call on you as well. Okay, so we have our first question. And I guess this one goes out to anyone who wants to answer it. What aspects of publishing papers are uniquely needed for communicating to a small group of experts? What ideas do you have for improving scientific literature? I think, Justin, maybe you can start with that one because I think it was out of that conversation that you came from.
So, I mean, papers are kind of the thing that we've always done. It's the thing people are very comfortable with. But I don't know if it's uniquely needed for communicating with a small group of experts necessarily, at least on its own. I mean, papers do a thing. They do, they've got a job that they solve. But for the number of, talking about a small group of experts, the number of small groups of experts that I've talked to who kind of universally agree that they're like, yeah, I read every paper in this field and they're all full of lies. Because, you go to recreate it and none of it actually works. So I think there's definitely a lot of pitfalls with papers. So, it's not necessarily uniquely needed per se, because it does have its flaws.
That's awesome. So I'm not going to get everyone's opinion on that because I think it was mostly at you. So we can get more questions before the time comes up. I'm going to ask Kevin to unmute and ask another question.
Yay. Thanks, guys. This is amazing. For all of the panelists, you guys can hear me, right? Yeah? Okay. I wanted to ask about professional training and how you think about that, where professional training doesn't exist for TikTok. Maybe there's some training for YouTube nowadays. I don't know. But how do you feel this will play a role in today or even in the future, as students might be looking at this saying I want to get into science communication. Should they spend time going to school or should they spend time on TikTok maybe?
Yeah, maybe I'll ask Darrion to take that one.
Oh, that's a good question. I think definitely there needs to be some type of formal training to understand how to understand the foundations of learning something. You have to have a very strong foundation, and that I think requires some type of formal training. And then separately, on my own time, I think instinctively I'm just very good at I'm very observant, and I kind of try to break apart the common trends on TikTok and try to apply those to what I'm learning in school. And then at the same time, I do have formal training in theater and acting. And so I think that plays a huge part too. And I think with a lot of my editing styles and the way that I portray myself on TikTok, it's I'm very messy. The editing is purposely terrible, but I think it's kind of similar to, what did Picasso say? It took him a while to learn how to draw a professional artist, but then it took him a lifetime to draw a kid. And I think that is applicable in the sense too, where you do have to have a lot of formal training. And then once you have those, those skills gathered, then you can kind of tease it apart and try to make it digestible to present something to a different group of audience or a different audience, if that makes sense.
That's great. Thanks so much, Darrion.
Can I just hop in really quick? Because I got a quick point I want to add to that.
Real quick.
So, I mean, there's lots of traditional media production courses, which I think would be a great addition to, your standard scientific courses. But especially with something like YouTube or TikTok or whatever, I think probably once you've got that base foundation of, I know how to edit a video, from there, really the best way is to kind of become sort of a student of YouTube, watch a ton of videos, see what works, you know, try and find your own style, that sort of thing. So it's some mix of, like, there already is traditional courses to teach you how to do this thing, but to translate that from traditional media to this new media of YouTube, you kind of have to learn a little bit on your own, because I don't know if there's a class that could ever teach you those like fine details of just seeing it done a bajillion times.
That's awesome. Yeah, snaps. So we're gonna eat in a bit into our break, but I think that's okay because I really like the conversation that we're having here. Tal, would you mind asking your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So this question is directed at Justin. So I had a student come up to me a few weeks ago and tell me that, as opposed to kind of the standard literature review process, they used your Whose Gene Is It Anyway series to learn a lot of this stuff, and they were applying it in the lab, and it was like amazing to see. And so it sounds like you've kind of hit on the idea that papers don't really have to be the universal medium of exchange for information in the scientific community. And the part that I'm not really clear on yet, and I think is a discussion worth having, is how we can introduce alternative media of exchange, and, you know, like kind of, you know, how do we question the dominance of papers and institutionalize alternatives?
I think that probably the best phrase to kind of sum that up is normalization through exposure, right? Like, papers are this hard ingrained thing that have been going for literally hundreds of years, whereas YouTube and video and all these things are only a thing that have been around for a much shorter amount of time. But, you know, the younger generations have grown up with this. Like, if you ask someone who's under 20, like, what TV do they watch? They go, what do you mean TV? You mean what streaming service do I have? So it's, and then you kind of get into that realm of like, how does new math get accepted when the old generation dies? Like, there's some amount of that. So I think it's a lot of like normalization through exposure, show that it works, get people involved, get people doing their own thing, and then it'll just kind of shift on its own. Because it's not like you can just kind of like call up Elsevier and be like, so we're going to need you to do a lot more video, because they'd be like, who are you? Why are you contacting me? And how did you get this number? I really think that's probably the only way that that's going to happen. Because I mean, Jove tried that, and everybody's universal response was, well, this is crap. So, you know, doing it in as accessible way as possible, in a way that's going to get the most eyeballs on the thing as possible, I think is probably the best. And there's so many amazing science YouTubers and TikToks and all this kind of thing that are inherently changing this. Like, I see it in the comments of people responding, be like, you know, I had no idea that you could do this, and, you know, every time you do a thing, this is crazy. Or like, you know, the other big science channels where like, as soon as you see that video pop up in your newsfeed, you're like, this is going to be the most amazing thing I see all day. So I think that's probably that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Snaps for the question. Snaps for the question answerer. Latasha, can you ask your question?
Sure, thank you. Just kind of adding on that, we are just starting our live streaming events, and I'm just wondering, how do you grow your audience? Because right now you have millions of views, but ours are like 100. And I'm wondering, because it's a lot of labor to make these online events, and I want to make sure that we have the maximum impact. So what is the best way to grow that audience?
Yeah, Darrion, why don't you take it, and then Justin, you can add to it if that's okay.
I think it really depends on the social media platform. I think with TikTok, I was able to grow so quickly in such a short amount of time. Honestly, I would like to just thank like TikTok's algorithm. And I think a lot of people who use TikTok, they'll hear like the TikTok algorithm a lot, and really like equivalent to Facebook's newsfeed. On TikTok, we have what's called the For You page. And once you like a video, the algorithm kind of understands, okay, these are the type of videos that you like. So then it'll kind of show you the type of videos that cater to your interests. And I think because some of my videos are just like flat out, like very crazy, very dumb, funny humor, like I think some of the younger students lean towards that type of entertainment. And so I guess once they liked it, it just showed up on more people's For You pages. And then on Instagram, Facebook, I think like on Facebook, I would just post my videos in meme pages, and those got a lot of shares. On Instagram, I think I would post some of my funny videos as a post on Instagram, and then those got a lot of shares. And once I'm on like people's stories, that'll just like redirect their followers to my page. I'm trying to get on YouTube and like I'm struggling. So Justin, I think, I'm gonna hand this question off to you now because I'm gonna learn from you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, YouTube is an especially weird creature. Like the algorithm is a particularly weird black box. And so all the people I know who are really successful on it have really studied what works and what doesn't. Like they're very careful. Like they will literally, and myself included, will spend literally hours messing with our thumbnails. And like we'll do like A/B testing where you'll make 2 or 3 different thumbnails and you'll like leave one up for a bit, see how that's responding. Cause we get real-time analytics. So you'll be watching that, go, okay, does this work? Does this work? See how that change the titles. And there's a couple different metrics that you're always looking for, which is click-through rate. So basically how many times the algorithm shows somebody that video versus the number of times they click on it. That number is really important. The higher it is, the better. Watch time is another super important metric. Like that is one of the biggest things that the algorithm throttles for. So the longer you can keep eyeballs on your content, the more your content will be showed. But also to get that initial viewage, you have to be really, really aggressive. And you have to hustle really, really hard. And it's really unpleasant for a lot of people. Like a lot of people don't like doing this. They feel really awkward doing that hard self-promotion, but you have to be everywhere. Like all the Facebook groups you can, like all the Reddit things you can, and you got to be careful with Reddit because they get really weird about self-promotion, like being on Twitter, like talking with people, sharing your stuff. There's a fine line, of course, because if you're too aggressive, it pisses people off. But especially at first, if you're just kind of everywhere, it gets that initial couple of eyeballs on your thing. And then once the algorithm knows that people are watching this, it'll start experimenting and sharing it to more people. But really the best thing I can suggest is really become a student of YouTube. See what works, see the big channels, see why their things work. And, of course they're going to have, fantastic video production and huge teams. You don't need that. I'm a team of 1 person. I make all of my own stuff. But you just have to like look at what works. So like if talking like thumbnails for a second, just really quickly, things that are too busy, things that look like you're trying way too hard, doesn't work. Like all the thumbnails where it's like somebody in the corner going like, doesn't work. Nobody wants to see that. Like people just want to see exactly the thing, which is great.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off because you actually had a really amazing written response to this in our Slack. So if people want to check out the science communication Slack channel, Justin had a really, really excellent explanation on thumbnails. I just want to get one more question in before we have to go, and that question is from Tess, who should be unmuted and ready to go. Maybe she's, oh, I'm sorry, Tess. Now you're unmuted.
So thanks so much for all the interesting answers. This is actually a question for Carla and Fernando, which is that I was curious, we've talked a bunch about social media audiences, but it seems like you chose to seek audiences elsewhere, kind of in the street and through this journal. And so I was curious about what you see as the advantages of that and what motivated seeking audiences there.
Yeah, so at least for me, building kind of like a direct connection, it was very important to actually create the impact and be kind of like protagonist of that impact. And I think it was very rewarding for all the scientists that participated in the science guerrilla because they could see them, they could see it with their own eyes. There was one of the communicators that afterwards told me that so he is a researcher on, what was it? Well, so whatever he was researching, so he engaged in a conversation that actually the person who was on the other side had a relative who was sick of that disease, and they established such an emotional connection that I think that was very rewarding on the situation. And also, I think it's also about the message, regardless of the medium that you end up using, if it's social media, or if it's an intervention, or if it's a museum installation. At the very end, it's about what you want to say and why that matters.
Awesome. Fernando, do you want to speak to that at all?
Yes, I think the same. Because this is a rigority that we can.
Fernando, we're not hearing you great. Can you try turning off your video and answering? Just to lower the bandwidth.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now, yeah, so.
Okay, I think that this is a principal step in when you start this about, but choosing to see audience in the via journal, we can talk about this in the via rigority to have more promoting the science via, I don't know, social media or via maybe TV or radio. This is a first step to have, I don't know.
Thank you, Fernando. I think it got cut off a bit, but you can totally find JourBiotech on Twitter. And it's really interesting that we got all these perspectives from Darrion and Justin, who are completely on social media, Carla, who is like in person, like science gorilla, and then Fernando, who does both social media and then kind of like the Zoom/in-person meetings, which is very interesting. So thank you all so much to our 4 speakers. Let's get some snaps, some emojis. Thank you so much. This was an awesome, awesome talk series. Really appreciate it.